Hey, so I don't know if you know this or not, but studies show that most people fail their New Year's resolutions by February. And depending on, what study you look at, some even say that it's more like the second week of January. And I don't think I need to say this to you, like we definitely do not want that to happen to you, do we? But what if there's a way where we could have you not only just achieve your goals for the year, but achieve your goals for your life in a way that's sustainable? In a way where it doesn't feel like you're pushing a boulder up the hill. It doesn't feel like you're two steps forward, one step back. It's not like you're self-sabotaging yourself constantly, but you set it in a way where your outcomes are so aligned with who you are inside that it's like you're almost being pulled towards it like a magnet. What would that feel like? Imagine what that would be like for a moment if that was your reality of you becoming the best version of you. And so, how are you all doing? I'm Jared with Self Mastery for Men. And what I do is I help men become the best version of themselves by getting rid of all of the BS, all of the conditioning, all of the limiting stuff that even holds them back in the first place. So that way, they can become who they're really meant to be, do the things they're really meant to do in this world, and have the life that they really want to have. And I know what you might be thinking. You're like, what are we doing this New Year's thing now for? It's been a few weeks, right? New Year's is over with. I chose this time very deliberately, if you can guess. And why would you guess that would be? Well, take a look at what I said the first thing in this video, right? Most people fail by February. And so this is the time, right around this time, where if you haven't already, where most people start to fall right off the cliff. And I want to make sure that doesn't happen to you, where we can catch it if that's the case, but then also make it so that way we can supercharge your goals for the year ahead, so you can really, really make it happen. Now, I'm curious, guess in the chat below, comment in the chat below, how many people do you think actually succeed past January? How many people do you think, according to those studies, get out of January into February and actually maintain the resolution they originally set out? Comment in the chat below. I'm curious what you think, and then I'll reveal it to you. I'll share it with you. But according to the studies I was taking a look at, it's like 20%. It's only 20% of people get out of January and continuing the resolutions. That means 80% of people have already just decided they're done before you're even watching this video. And that's not to mention, what do you think happens in March, April, May, June, right? Do you know what I mean? Like there's that natural drop off that happens. And I know I don't have to say this to you, right? Like we're not here for that. Like we're not here to give up on our dreams or give up on our goals, are we? We want to make sure that we're the type of person where, we set a goal, we make it happen, we become that version that we know that we're meant to be. And what I found is when men come to me, when I work with men, there's usually one of two types of situations. Number one is things are going really well for them. And to the outside world, they're crushing it. And people in their life might be like, wow, like you're on a scale of 1 to 10. 10's like they're really living the best life. They might even seem like a 10, and they might intellectually, logically know that they're doing really well. But if they're really honest with themselves, they know compared to where they really could be if they just let it rip, they're really only at like a 6 or a 7, right? And they know there's that other level for them. Does that make sense? Or where people come to me, they're a sincerely great man. They're here for the right reasons. They study, they do personal development. They really read a lot of books. They're really into up leveling their life, but there's almost like an invisible ceiling, or there's like this invisible barrier where they get close to the goal, but then they get back to where they were before, or they're two steps forward, one step back, or they self-sabotage. And it's like there's this invisible ceiling, or you've heard this metaphor say before, it's like an air conditioner, right? If the air gets above a certain temperature, it brings it right back down. It's almost like you have the unconscious thermostat keeping you right back where you were. And so they want to overcome that to really reach their full potential. But if you take a look at both of those camps, both of those types of people, they have one thing in common. If you go up to the higher level, and what that is I believe that every man deep down in his core knows there's a version of himself that he really could be, that would be his full potential if he could just figure out a way to let it out. And you always heard, there's that thing where people's biggest fear, like mankind's biggest fear, is they're not going to be loved or they're not going to be enough. I think that's true. And I think there's a third one, especially for men that want to achieve a lot in their life, or, especially for men that want self-mastery, is I believe that fear is they're afraid that they're not going to reach their full potential. You know, it's that fear of regret of living your entire life and getting to the end and realizing there was so much more in the tank that I could have done that would have really, made a difference, that would have really made my life like just such a masterpiece of a life. And I think that's a lot of men's biggest fear. And if that's where you're coming from, like, hey, there's no shame in that, right? Like that's what we're all here for. I was the same way. That just means you're human. And I'll share with you a couple of years ago, like you would not recognize me at all. That's how I'm able to talk to you about this. I had everything that you would figure that you would want on paper, but deep down, I had all of these internal conflicts and things that weren't really aligned. And when they stacked up over time, they compounded. You ever see like with stocks, like 10 cents leads to 20, 20 leads to 40, 40 leads to 80, and then it explodes, right? Like it just goes exponential. Those things internally that were inner conflicts left unresolved just compounded to major, major issues. And so at my very, very worst point in life, I ended up 80 pounds overweight. It was crazy. I was close to six figures in debt. It wasn't six figures, but it was right. It was like a hair away from that, and it was really really scary for a little while. And then not only that, I ended up divorced. I was depressed. I was losing my business. My biggest clients weren't paying me. It was a mess. But the worst part about it is I knew better. And the worst part about it is I had studied all the personal development stuff. I had been to all the seminars. I was reading all the books. I was doing the morning routines. I was, slapping my chest and firing myself up and really trying to motivate myself. But have you ever done that before where you try the strategies or the morning routines or you try the latest fad or you try to really amp yourself up and it works temporarily, but long term it doesn't sustain? Have you ever experienced that before? Yeah, comment in the chat like, "Hey, that's me." If that's not to judge anybody, like I told you, I think it's just we're human. And that was happening with me. And it just kept happening year after year after year. And I was so frustrated because I was like Mr. Declaration. See if any of you, if this sounds familiar, it wasn't even for New Year's. It'd be a random Thursday. I'd be like, today's the day that I turn it all around. Today's the day my life changes. And I get motivated for a couple, maybe a month at the most likely like a couple weeks. And it would taper down. And that was the story of my life. And I finally just got so frustrated where I'm like, you know what? Enough. You're more than this. You're meant for so much more if you could just get out of your own head. And not only that, but like you know better than this, right? What would happen if you actually used what you knew and stepped into your full potential? What would happen if you just stopped listening to that voice in your head that said you couldn't do it, and instead you listen to that voice of your potential that knows who you're really meant to be? And I went all in. I went all in on myself. And I came up with a couple of distinctions I want to share with you. And I'm going to share them with you here. And I'm also going to go into greater depth. I'm going to put together a workshop specifically for this. And the workshop is going to be called From Resolutions to Results: How to Become the Best Version of You, not just for this year, but for a lifetime. And so if you're interested in checking out that workshop, it's free. Just comment in the comment section below workshop, and I'll make sure that you see that when it's live. I'll tag you in it, or I'll make sure you get the link. Or if you're watching this video and it's already made, it's probably linked somewhere. Either there's a suggested video or in the comment section is a link. So check out for that. But if you want to see the workshop From Resolutions to Results, comment workshop below and we'll make sure that you get that sent to you. But I made a couple of really key distinctions that I think are going to help you in this new year and for the rest of your life. First of all, according to Forbes, the number one types of New Year's resolutions are: I want to make more money, I want to get out of debt, I want to lose weight, I want to get in better shape, right? And things with relationships, improve my relationship, things like that, those typical ones. What do they all have in common? What do they all have in common? Well, first of all, it's like I want this. So it's almost like there's a hint of wishful thinking in there, right? It's like I want this. I hope I get this. It's almost like a Christmas wish list, right? But not only that, one of those things that they all have in common is they have to do with things that you're either doing or things that you're having. It's either you having to do something or you having something, right? So it's like I want to, be in better shape. Well, that's the end goal. That's the having, right? Or it's I want to lose weight. It's like I got to do something to lose weight, right? It's doing or having, but it ignores one very critical component. What component does that ignore? I bet you're already starting to get an idea. Comment in the chat what you think it's ignoring. It's ignoring who you're being. It's ignoring who you're being 100%. So here's the challenge with most New Year's resolutions. They set a goal. Here's what I want to do. Here's what I want to have, but it ignores the being. And I'm going to give you a perfect metaphor for this. It's going to make a lot of sense. Have you ever heard of someone that wins the lottery and they win like an astronomical number, like $1 million or even more than that, right? And they didn't come from a wealthy family. And then you hear the stories, what happens to them a couple years later. Comment what you believe. What happens to them a few years later after they win? In most cases, what they found, because they follow up on these people a couple years later, they've either lost the money and they're back to where they were, or they're in a worse financial position than they were before. And that's the rule, not the exception. Why do you think that happens? Because you change the person's circumstances, right? You give them the thing they wanted, but what hasn't changed? Their beliefs, their mindset, how they act within that, right? But really how they're acting is based on what they believe they are, who they believe they are, and if they believe they're deserving or not of it. Does that make sense? So if you win, the Mega Millions jackpot, but your identity is I'm not a wealthy person, my family was never wealthy, will you find ways to get rid of the money? 100% you will, right? If you start a New Year's resolution and it's like, I'm going to get in better shape and I'm going to be in the best shape of my life, but your identity is, I am not a healthy person and no one in my family has ever been fit. Is that going to be difficult for you to maintain that change long term, right? 100%. So the missing component here is the being. And that's what I discovered. I looked at my life. It was my health, it was my finances, it was my career, it was my relationships. If there's like a wheel of life and it's like 0 to 10, like what number are you at? Like I was at all ones and zeros for every single aspect of my life, right? Maybe you're not nearly as bad as I was, but when I looked at it, I go, the one thing that each of these categories have in common, I could do more tasks, but it's really who am I being? It's how am I showing up? Do you follow what I'm saying? So, number one, the first thing we're going to cover is how do we actually set goals? How do we actually set resolutions? How do we set outcomes for ourselves where it's not wishful thinking, where I want it, but I presuppose or I presume that it's like some future thing I'm not going to get? How can we word it in a way where it's like you're almost being pulled towards it magnetically and you're compelled to make it happen, right? There's ways to frame it and there's ways to word your outcome and your resolution to make it so magnetic that you're pulled towards it every single day, right? So that's number one. We're going to help you to set really clear outcomes and resolutions that are going to get you to actually make them happen. But then number two, what we're going to do, now you have the vision, now you have the purpose, now you have the outcome. Well, if you have the outcome, we also have to align what? We have to align who we believe we are. We have to align our self-concept, our identity with the person that would achieve that in the first place. So that way we don't have like the example I shared with you before about the lottery happen. So number one, we're going to set you really, really clear outcomes that pull you forward towards your outcome. And then number two, we're going to help you align your identity with who you need to become to make that happen. So that's one and two. Now, you have that right there. You're ahead of like 80, 90% of the people if you have just those two things alone. And there's a third thing that we're going to cover. Because is it possible that you could have a really, really clear outcome that you're excited about? And you could know who you need to step into to become that, but then not actually do it in reality or try to and not have a sustained long term? Is it possible? 100% it's possible. And the reason why isn't because you don't have knowledge. The reason why isn't because you don't have willpower. The reason why is because the only difference between you actually executing it and doing what you know is all of your internal resistance as to why you can't have it. It's all the stuff holding you back. It's that invisible ceiling I was talking about. It's that thermostat that tries to bring you down. So I'm going to show you number one, how to set the outcomes. Number two, how to step in to become the man that makes that happen. Number three, how to eliminate any of the internal resistance that's preventing you from making that happen in the first place, right? So those are the three things. We're going to cover that in the workshop from resolutions to results, how you can become the man you're meant to be this new year and in your life, how you can achieve your outcomes. If you want to see the workshop, comment workshop below. And I'm going to share with you. I'm going to share with you how powerful this is. I did this. I discovered this in 2019, 2020. Since then, it was about 12 to 18 months after that. By the way, this is not a get rich quick thing, right? It's not like instantly all your problems are solved. You'll still have to do work towards it. If you want to get in better shape, you got to eat right and go to the gym, right? If you want to have a relationship, you got to ask somebody out. You got to put yourself out there. Common sense stuff. But what this is going to do is it's going to get rid of that push-pull internal drag. You're not going to be fighting against yourself. You're not going to be pushing the boulder up a hill anymore. So you're going to set an outcome, you're going to take action, you're going to get results. It's going to be way, way more easy. Does that make sense? Cool. So I'll share with you how it worked for me. When I discovered this, within the next 12 to 18 months, I completely lost all of the 80 pounds. I got into the best shape I've been in since college and maintained it for years. I've maintained it since. I got 100% out of debt to the other side, and now I make six figures annually every year since then. And I've transformed my relationships. And I'm not saying that to brag or be some internet clout guy, right? Believe me, guys, that's not my game. I'm not here for clout or for applause or accolades or anything like that. I'm here to sincerely help you. And I want to share with you if that's where I was and that helped me go from there to here, you are not nearly where I was, many of you, and this is going to be able to help you too. And so my sincere goal, my sincere wish is that if there's that version of you, even if things are well and you want to get to the next level, this will help you out. If you're trying to get rid of that unconscious stuff that's holding you back and you're two steps forward, one step back, and you want to really achieve something this year, this is going to be for you. Either way, this is going to help you. And if you want to check it out, I'm going to put it together in that workshop. So just comment below workshop. I'll send you the link or let you know when that goes live. From resolutions to results, how you can become the man you're really meant to be this year and get the outcomes you want to have in your life. So I'll send that to you. Check it out. I think it's going to be a really, really useful resource for you. And like I said, the reason why we're doing this is right around the time when 80% of the people fall off the wagon, right? So perfect time to make it happen, recommit to yourself and keep those promises to yourself and make this year the best year yet. So that's it. This is Jared with Self Mastery for Men. Comment workshop below. I'll make sure you get access to it and I will see you soon. Take care.